Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name's Nicki. I'm an author and editor and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the other things I love. Today I'm here with a booktube tag and it's an original tag that I've just created. So if you are interested in having a go at it yourself, all the information, the questions is below. I'd appreciate a link back to me as the creator, but if you do decide to give it a go, I do hope you have great fun with it. I'm calling this the Book Through the Ages tag. There's only 6 categories to fulfill, so it's a nice quick one. And we're basically recommending a book from each century, going back to just before the 1600s. So it can be any book, you can recommend it for any reason. It makes it a very broad category. So it is just, I've just gone with the first ones that came into my head for each century. And I do apologise for the light conditions. It may darken and lighten a little bit during this video. We've got a bit of a weird morning. It kind of wants to rain, but then the sun comes out and then it goes gloomy. So the light keeps altering, so I do apologise for that. Hopefully it's not going to affect the footage too much. But without any further ado, let's kick off. So our first category is pre-1600, and the book I'm recommending is The Prince by Machiavelli. This is obviously a non-fiction title in most ways, and the reason I recommend it is because I think it does really demonstrate quite a lot about that period. It's the 1500s we're talking about, early 1500s we're talking about here. And I think it does tell you a lot about the sort of political, social situation of the time, which makes it quite interesting. Number 2, for the 1600s, I have picked Don Quixote by Cervantes. This is just such a major work of the period. It's one of the great 1600s early novels. So definitely I recommend it. It is quite a read, it's quite thick, but don't let that put you off, because once you get into the style of the story, it's such an enjoyable read. We move on to the 1700s for category 3, and I've picked Clarissa by Samuel Richardson. Literature of the 1700s is really all about sex. I mean, I don't think there's another way of putting it. It is. This particular one is a classic work of the time because it depicts a young woman who is taken into the power, or falls into the power of a notorious rake called Lovelace. So it's a really great read. As a popular style of the time, it's done in the form of letters. It's an epistolary novel, so it's something a little bit different, which I hope will give you a bit of a feel for the period. Number 4, the 1800s, I picked Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. It's one of my favourite of the Victorian era novels. You could easily go with Dickens or something, but Les Mis is just, it's always been one of my faves since I was a teenager, so it's the one I would recommend. It's a fairly heavy read in some ways if you're not used to the style, but do persevere, and you have to just put up with Victor Hugo's digressions. He does like to go off on a tangent now and then. Les Mis has a couple of those, most notably a little side description of the Battle of Waterloo, which doesn't really impact on the story at all, but you can kind of skip it if you feel the need to. Number 5, the 1900s. This was a really hard one because there's so many I could have picked, so I just went with the very first one that came into my head when I was thinking a 1900s novel, and that was Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. It is a really typical piece from the first half of the 20th century. Waugh is such a brilliant writer. He's got this really dry wit, and he's quite satirical, but Brideshead is a wonderful, wonderful story. There's a lot of different nuances going on in it, and it really is one that stands up to repeat readings as well. And finally, the 2000s. Again, this was a really broad category. There's so many books you could choose, but again I went with my gut instinct on the first thought that I had, which was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, which is the first book in what is going to be a trilogy. The final part should be coming out soon. As I'm filming, it's meant to be out later this year. And it is based on the life of Thomas Cromwell, so it's set in Henry VIII's court. Really wonderful work, a really original, imaginative first-person narrative. So I definitely recommend that. So, what are your recommendations? Do the tag. I'd love to see what you are all picking as your recommendations and your choices for each era. I will end there, but I'll be back again very, very soon with another vlog for you. Bye for now, everyone.